You're listening to the Footy First podcast on TSN 1050. Champions live here.
That's right, folks. Another Saturday means another episode of Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, Niko Giantsopoulos in studio. And Niko, last week we teed it up. We had Tristan Henry on. We had Ollie Bassett on.
Are we not going to talk about how you're in studio right now?
We can.
Think about it. You're in studio. Think about the players have sat in that seat before you.
Yep.
Jordan Wilson.
All the players have sat in this seat before me.
Rosario, Joshua Cloak.
Yep.
And now Nick McVicar.
And now me. I'm finally in the studio looking at you as we do the show.
You're well, yeah.
This is different for sure.
How do I look? How's it under the lights?
I don't know. I kind of like you better from the other side.
Yeah, likewise. But anyways, you were saying.
Yeah, but we teed it up last week. Ottawa, Forge, CPL final. And we got a game. It was a good one.
It was. It wasn't the boring game I was kind of talking about that we've seen.
It wasn't the boring game that it was billed to be.
No, this was a fun game to watch.
Yeah. And I have to give you credit before we go anywhere. Before we break down anything, I have to give you credit.
This is going.
Because you did say it would come down to a set piece goal, and it did. The game winner was a set piece goal.
I described the game perfectly. Just
you had the wrong team.
I even said then they're gonna score like a second goal.
Yep. In the last 10 minutes.
And I said
or so.
Ollie Bassett was going to whip it in. It wasn't Ollie Bassett. It was Tristan Borges.
Yeah.
So I was pretty close. Just completely wrong team. I had some Forge fans in my DMs actually letting me know
I love
how good I corrected. Just the wrong team. And I told them, I'll never doubt Forge ever again.
It's hard to doubt Forge, man. Like 4 years in a row in the final and 3 championships.
I know. Well, again, that's the record. I even saw a tweet saying from Pamadou Ka saying he's Pacific. So what they did at Pacific, that's how special it was because they were able to beat Forge, and no other team has done it besides them. And again, we thought,
and it's true,
we both thought Ottawa was going to be the team to do it.
So going into the final, we agreed that Ottawa was the best team this season. Correct? Like on paper, the way everything was looking, they were the best team over the season.
Yeah.
But what did this game prove?
That doesn't matter. Like, Forge is a big game team. Like, they're built for this.
Forge might be a better team. Like, best team across the season means nothing. They might be the better formation. They might be the best dynasty.
I would almost argue, I think it's opposite. I think whoever can win the league over 28 games, they've proved they're the best team. But Forge is like that X factor that...
The best foundation. They have the best foundation right now because they keep finding ways to win. Is that how you win
one-off finals? Is a foundation? I think it's just
a foundation of winning.
Players.
Yeah, a foundation.
Yeah, they have that like winning culture in them.
I would argue that that's the way it goes.
Yeah,
because you look at it, we both thought Ottawa was going to win. We were going back and forth. We made points for both teams.
Yeah,
but we thought Ottawa was going to win when it came down to it.
I guess you could say they're the better team because again, they didn't win this game without Becker, and they were still. That's kind of the reason why I was doubting, Forge a little bit. I'm like, I want to say Forge, but they're missing their key man and Kyle Becker, so I'm like, I'm going to go Ottawa.
The other names stood up,
and that was the most impressive thing. And you kind of want to get into the 2 goals because there's one thing that I noticed, and it hasn't been talked about. I think this player has been talked about a lot, and because of it, I kind of like focused in on him while I was watching the game, and that's Alexander Janssen.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's talking player of the year. And I guess, to be honest, I just never watched him like as in depth.
You didn't pay attention to him because that wasn't your focus on a game at that point. Because you were probably watching before Becker and Chouanier and all these guys and Borges. But when you pay attention to him, he's noticeable.
Exactly. And then the 2 goals that Forge scored, he played a part in both of them. The first one, he pops out and pins, I think it's Malcolm Shaw on Ottawa, and that's why the ball's able to kind of come at such a low angle, but he does the pin right away. Again, I would love to like play it back on the thing, but right before Borges makes contact, he quickly jumps in front, kind of catches Malcolm Shaw like off guard, pins him, and then the ball's able to whip across, and then Ali heads it home. Like, that's one little thing that he did that caused that goal. And the second goal, it was a quick free kick. There, he's maybe like in like 60 yards away from goal, puts the ball down quick, threads the needle. He like breaks 2 lines, goes to one of the player on the left, pass out to Chouanier. They combine at the top there. Goal, second goal. Those are 2.
It's too easy.
Again, but that's where a guy like that, I'm like, okay, fair enough, respect. Like, everyone's been talking about him. Now I watch him in a final, and he puts on like a clinic like that, like a low-key, high soccer IQ clinic. He really impressed me in that game.
So I want to get into a little bit more depth as well with you, okay? Because I know you watched the game back after. I know that as well. Who do you think was the most important player in the game for Forge, and who do you think was the most underrated? I think it might be Janssen for most underrated.
Well, I think he's both. I thought, again, Chouanier, I thought did well, but Chouanier had a really big moment, I thought, over the course of the game. And then I'm talking in the final, in extra time, Janssen's also, tackling, and the ball goes out for a corner, defending in like the 93rd minute. I think overall he was the game-changing player. But then again, Forge is whipping in like those moments there. But Forge just looked so solid. Like, no one stood out. I felt like no one really had a bad game, even when the subs came on. I thought Jordan Hamilton played actually a good role in that, closing him out. I can't remember how many minutes he played, but again, solid up top, kind of being that big man to hold up the play. Again, such an impressive performance.
So you just think it was like an overall great performance by the club?
Yeah, and that's almost like after I was just like, respect. Like, I won't doubt you guys again.
It's hard. Again, it's just so hard to. They've shown it every year.
I won't now. Like,
this was the first. This was the first year, I will admit, that they showed signs of cracking. Like, year 1, year 2, they might not have won the regular season, but they were
touched on that.
They were a top team. Last year they were a top team. Again, might not have won the season, but they were a top team. But this was the first year that they showed signs of cracking for the first time. And yet, at the end of it all, when all is said and done, who's holding the North Star Shield above their head? It's Forge. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. What we're watching is a dynasty.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's shocking to say that 4 years into the league. But it's a dynasty. How often does an expansion team like that be? You can easily say that. I know it's an expansion league and all, but still, like, that's incredible what they've put together out in Hamilton. And it comes down to a lot of different factors. The fact that Sigma was there for so long, and a lot of the players, a lot of the coaching staff have been together for so long. It comes down to Bobby and just how good of a coach he is. And it comes down to, I think, the front office and what they did to put the team together originally. We got to give them a lot of credit too. And I think that might be where some people will overlook. Everyone is giving credit to Bobby, and rightfully so. Bobby deserves credit. But can we talk about that front office and how they've gone about putting a team together?
Yeah, Kostas Smirniotis and Bobby's brother. I think he's the general manager there. I mean, they've built a strong team. I think it's important to point out as well, and again, Ontario soccer fans are going to love hearing this, that look at the two teams that were in the final this year.
Yep.
Ottawa and Hamilton, two Ontario-based teams. And I think the way those teams were built, like, they have a lot of local products in there from Ontario.
And even though you guys didn't make the playoffs, like, York has a ton of Ontario talent too, right? It might not have meshed, and because of injuries and stuff, you guys did have a down period in the middle. But look at the beginning of the year, look at the end of the year for York. There's a lot of good coming out of the Ontario teams right now. Like, that's a positive for Ontario soccer fans. Sorry, I had to point that out.
No. I think it's important. And again, in York's situation, I think, again, a lot of our top players are the local Canadians, and that's where they're getting it right. Maybe we're missing other pieces in certain other levels of recruitment, but that's a different conversation for
that's an off-season conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But no, again, the management of Forge has been incredible. Now it's just up to the rest of us teams in the CPL to try to dethrone them and kind of end this dynasty.
Dethrone them again.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're putting on a clinic on us. So we can't let them make another final next year. Again, that's the goal, and that's not a disrespect thing. It's actually a respect thing. Like, let's get this sorted. Like, let's deal with them. Like, that's every CPL's mindset, I think.
Okay, because
that's a respect thing.
That was a question I was going to ask you. Forge have won 3, have been to 4 finals.
How long are we going on this?
We got time.
Perfect. Okay.
We got time.
Good conversation.
They've been to 4 finals.
Yeah.
They've won 3 of them. If you're going to beat them and dethrone them, wouldn't you almost prefer them to be in the final to do it? Like, I know you got to give them the benefit of the doubt if they make it there, that they're probably going to figure out a way to win. But as a player, wouldn't you almost want to dethrone them in the final?
as a player. I mean, I don't care. It's
okay.
It's just up to us whenever we match up against them to because Cavs had the chance in the semis to end it there. They failed to do it. Ottawa had a chance to do it in the finals. So at this point, you knock them out when you can. You don't go, I want to see you guys in the finals.
But you want to see them in the playoffs. It's almost bad for the CPL.
It seems like to be a champion, you got to go through 4 just.
Yeah, but it would almost feel weird if they didn't win or didn't get into the playoffs. Like, it would almost be like the saddest story of the CPL if they don't make the playoff next year.
I don't think it'll be a sad story, but it just speaks on the foundation. Like, I don't think it's realistic that they won't be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In my mind, every single year, if there's 4 teams that are going to make playoffs,
you're putting them in.
Forge
one
is
of
always
them.
in. I've never thought up until now, and next year it's going to be the same. And I think it's going to take some crazy things happening
until they're not. They're in. Right? It's kind of that's the mentality.
Exactly,
until they prove that they don't belong there anymore, they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how it felt like the beginning of the NHL when Montreal was just dominating.
Yeah, Montreal and Toronto were always there. It was almost consistent.
Exactly. So I'm sure the fans were always like, those two.
It's just kind of a shock, and I shouldn't say shock. It's kind of a surprise to see them hold the trophy once again, and yet I'm not shocked in any way, shape, or form.
No, again, deserving, and I got to give props to them because all their locker room antics, the champagne, all that. I actually thought I thought it looked cool though.
Yeah.
Like they look sick. There's always these memes. Sometimes soccer players don't know. Like they look cool doing it. Again, shout out to the CPL media team. I think it's an art to be good. I've seen some NBA, champagne spray. I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
you could do.
Well, the other thing is that the shirts that they got for winning champions. This is something aesthetically that helped them. It was the dark gray that they use on their jerseys, which matches their orange, which made the goggles. I think they had mostly orange goggles too. It was the whole aesthetic made it look a little bit better, if that makes sense.
If that makes sense, sure. But again, the moment, it's funny you say that because the moment that sticks out in my mind from the clips I saw is Kyle Becker having a beer shower with his shirt off, so that top's not on, and he's like shadow boxing.
No, and I get that. There's great moments like that, but I'm saying like you see some of these other ones, and it's like a white shirt that doesn't really match.
So you think it matches
jersey.
So well? CPL's like,
they got
we
very
think
lucky.
Forge is going to win. So
well, I think they got lucky in that sense. Is that I don't know if it was actually Forge. Like those were Forge specific shirts, and then they had different ones for Atletico Ottawa, like a different color. Because if that was the case, that was brilliant by CPL.
Yeah,
there's no way for us to know unless we find a way to ask the manufacturer, right? Which is never going to happen.
We need to send an agent into CPL headquarters, get some answers.
We will never know. But aesthetically, it looked really good.
Yeah.
So
kudos to them. Listen, they know how to celebrate.
They know how to celebrate.
The most experience.
I was going to say they have a lot of experience doing it. We went from that, the high of the CPL final, to another Canadian soccer high, not even 72 hours later, as the Vancouver FC team was finally announced, I think is the best way to put it. We now have a 9th club in the CPL, and Niko, we're pretty lucky, because joining us on the other side, the new head coach of Vancouver FC will be joining us. So you won't want to miss that. For Niko Giantsopoulos, I'm Nick McVicar. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, York United keeper, Niko Giantsopoulos with you. And Niko, we're very lucky now. We teased it on the other side. We are now joined by the brand new head coach of the brand new CPL club, Vancouver FC. Afshin Ghotbi is on the phone. Afshin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, and I'm so happy to be with you and your audience, and I'm thrilled to be in Vancouver in Canada.
Well, it's a big time right now out in Vancouver. Obviously, the new club. You've been all over the world managing, working with soccer clubs. How did you end up, in all places, Vancouver?
Well, Vancouver has been really on my bucket list for my wife, and we've always heard so many wonderful things about how beautiful Vancouver is. That's first and foremost really important to share with you. Football is kind of a small world, and the owner of Vancouver FC as you may know him, Mr. Rob Friend, one of the icons of Canadian football, was playing in Germany at the time. I was coaching in the J League in Japan. And I was looking for a center striker. And one of my scout friends in Europe told me that I had to see Rob Friend play. It was the perfect solution for our problems inside the danger area. So I looked at the videos of Rob, and I was so impressed with how good he was in the air and how good he was in the 60-meter box. So I contacted him, and I tried to do everything possible to bring him to my club in 2012. So basically almost 10 years ago. And I really liked his personality, and I really got to like him over time. Unfortunately, the football gods or soccer gods didn't make it happen for us, and we didn't get a chance to have him in our club. But the relationship grew and our friendship grew, and over the years, we were always in communication. I was so impressed with what he did at Pacific FC and what they built, and I was so impressed with what was happening in Canadian football. As we all can see around the world, the Canadian players are doing extremely well in Europe. The level of Canadian Premier League is growing and improving, and I saw some wonderful football out of Canadian League this past year. So Rob explained to me about his project. I was taking a family sabbatical after really struggling with the COVID period in China. I was in the Chinese Super League and working in China. So this project, building a team from ground zero, really was intriguing and exciting to me, especially in the city of Vancouver, and doing it with someone that I care about and I trust and I respect, like Rob Friend. And the final nail was for me the fact that it's within several hours from my father, who's aging, and my family, who I've not seen for so long, chasing my dream and my passion around the world, coaching soccer. So everything was perfect. Timing, the people involved, the project, and really where football is in Canada. Canadian national team being in the World Cup after 30-some plus years, and the World Cup coming in 2026 to Canada. So I think this is the place to be.
And it's almost like destiny, you know, all the stars aligned for you to get this job happening. It's great to hear, but I've heard you say in other interviews that you did when the announcement happened, and you're speaking to KJ about it, and you're talking about Rob Friend and the ownership group, and almost you always say vision. What is it that makes their vision so unique, and you think it's different, maybe compared to the other CPL owners?
I think myself as an Iranian American, chasing my passion to have to work from country to country, continent to continent. You leave your family, you live your comfort zone, and you go after your dream. And it's such a struggle day in and day out. You have to fight with all your might to prove yourself, to get success, to get results, to keep your job, and to keep improving yourself at your profession. And I think Rob went through the same. Rob and Josh together as Canadian players, they literally had to go to European countries, and for anyone that has to leave their family and work in very difficult situations and to be successful and to sustain their level of performance, to keep their job, they can probably appreciate that. And I think Rob and the ownership group and myself, we want to really create a pathway for young, talented players in North America that can, by having a platform to develop themselves, to improve their performances so they can get an opportunity to play in the highest level in Europe. I think it's a great to be part of that project. And 20 plus years ago, that was not norm. It was not possible. It was very difficult, and that's why a lot of people get discouraged and they give up on their dream. So we want to make that a little bit easier for them. So that, I think, is a great vision to have, to give back to the sport, develop a platform that you can improve the talent and help in the development of the game and development of the players in North America.
Is it fair to say now that you're almost, I know you're new to it, but you're now a fan of Canada soccer and everything that's going on here? Well,
more importantly, I think, of course, I've had the pleasure of sometimes meeting Canadians around the world, and it's always been very nice. But to be in Canada, I've been here for 48 hours, and to see how hospitable and kind, how open they are, and they have the perfect balance of the European influence and American influence. So for us, for me personally, it's really refreshing to be here, and so I love the Canadian people. Vancouver is a beautiful city, and the Canadian League, and I shared this story. Most of the Canadian, the budget for the Canadian League, if you add all the salaries for the players, it's basically maybe less than what a foreign player in a Chinese Super League in the past. So to have this kind of a high level of football with such a small salary is really special. It's fantastic. So that's why I really think the model, the business model that has been created for Canadian Premier League is sustainable. It's going to help the sport grow. It's going to encourage business ventures to come in and invest in the sport, and that's what it takes to grow a sport in a country like Canada, and as we've seen in MLS. So I'm excited to be part of it.
In conversation with Afshin Ghotbi from Vancouver FC, the brand new head coach of Vancouver FC, and Afshin, you just said it. You've only been here for 48 hours on the ground with the club. What's kind of the first steps that you guys are partaking in right now to get everything sorted, to get everything ready to start going out and signing players and getting all the sponsorships that you need to put the team on the field at the beginning of next year?
When Rob and the ownership decided to hire me as the head coach, and it happened several weeks ago, and of course the announcement was yesterday, already I was given a list of 43 players that were free agents in Canadian Premier League. So I've been watching a lot of games and footage of all the players, and obviously I have a certain style of football that I really like to play, and we want to create a team that really represents the DNA of this city. It represents the demographics of this city. It brings the spirit that we're looking for on the field, so that the fans can connect to them. So we've been trying to identify and target the players that we can go after. We're also looking for a certain age group of players that have a lot to play for and have a chance to develop themselves with us and move on to the top leagues in Europe. So I think we've done a really good job of targeting the players we want, and we are in contact with their agents and trying to see if we can get them to buy into our project and join us.
So for a team for a team that's going to play for you, what's the identity that you want your team to kind of be playing on the field?
Well, I think first and foremost, you must have players that have the DNA of Vancouver. I think Vancouver is a very sophisticated global city. So we want players that have the spirit to win and to fight day in and day out. We're looking for players that have the football IQ and intelligence to solve problems on the field. And we want players that are very skillful and technical, so they can execute the decisions they can take. And I always follow a very simple model when I look for players. First and foremost, talent. Second, we're looking for character. And thirdly, we're looking for players with ambition. So if you have two of the three, you have a chance. But if you have less than two of the three, you basically, in my opinion, don't have a chance to make it at the highest level in the sport. So if you have three of the three, then we think that you have a big chance to go to the highest level of the game. So we're looking for those kind of players. And I think in Canada there are many hidden gems. There are many fantastic players that either didn't have their opportunities or haven't given the chance to show their qualities on the soccer field at a high level. So we're hoping to find some of them also. And regardless if they're young, regardless if they are from various ethnic groups, it doesn't matter. It just matters that they share a little bit of passion for the game and the desire to be successful.
One thing I noticed when I was looking through your history as a manager and an assistant manager is the fact that your teams don't give up many goals. Is that something that you pride yourself on as a manager, or is that something that is just a byproduct of the culture that you end up trying to build at these clubs?
Well, I think I've always believed, even though I was myself personally an attacking player, and I love attacking football, I think basically professional football is about winning and entertainment. But to win games, you have to first and foremost build a great defensive structure and organization. So a team that can defend from every position and a team that can attack from every position, but most importantly to keep balance. And keeping balance meaning when you are attacking, you keep a certain numbers behind the ball in very intelligent positions. So when the ball is lost, they're there for the rebound. They're there to shut down the counterattacks. And the swift reactions after losing and winning the ball has always been very important to me, because if you are quick in after losing the ball, getting yourself in positions to stop the attack, then you minimize a lot of goals that you take. If you are quick the moment you win the ball and get players forward, and with the fewest passes getting in danger areas, you're able to create easier chances to score, and that's when most goals are scored within 3 passes. Teams get in attacking third and get chances in front of the goal. And being really sharp in dead ball situations, because also those are the phases that a lot of goals are taken. Football is an incredible sport because you can do everything right. You can have the process that is absolutely perfect, but still the results don't come, because it's just a game of moments. And it's a game of moments when somebody is not focused, they're concentrated, goals can be taken and games can be lost. So win, loss, or draw, what I think really leaves a legacy is the vision, it's the way that you play, it's the attitude you bring to the field, and I think that's what really attracts people to certain projects and certain teams, and I think wins fans. And this game really is one of the few things that connects the world. And Vancouver, with such a diverse ethnic groups in the city, and I hope that Vancouver FC can be the connector that can bring the city united and get them to feel as one.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. And I think another, interesting point of view, I guess, for an expansion side coming into this league is not only, and we've spoken about all the job opportunities and for professional players here in the country, but another side of it is now there's a new professional team in the area, and there's a lot of aspiring professional coaches in the area that, are now gonna, are probably just excited that there's new opportunities in the area that they're working in. Have you gotten a chance, again, 48 hours in the country? Canadians are hospitable, but I don't know if they're that quick to do it. But have you gotten a chance, or do you want to at least get into the community of the local coaches in the area and just get a feel of what what Vancouver local soccer is all about?
Well, it's so interesting you asked that, because from basically 9 in the morning until 1 o'clock, we had meetings with young Canadian coaches that are interested to join the project and work with me. And to be honest, I'm at the phase in my career. I'm 58 years old, so maybe if I'm lucky, I have 12 plus years left in my career as a manager. I really want to give as much back and mentor as many young coaches as I can. I've gained so much experience in the last 35 years in this job, working in 7 countries. And there are things that you can read in a book. There are things you can watch in videos. There are things you can learn in a coaching course. But experience it firsthand, and having those real moments as a manager where you make mistakes and you win or lose games, those are invaluable. And I think to share those with younger coaches can really help them develop themselves as the next future managers and coaches in the country like Canada. And maybe a player can play the game, but a coach can really create a generation of players. So I think they're a really important part of the development of the game.
No, it's great to hear, and I'm sure a lot of young coaches, like you said, that are probably blowing up your phone right now to work with you are extremely appreciative that you're not a Canadian, but you're coming here, but you're willing to kind of share the knowledge that you've gained throughout your journey. I think it means a lot, and Canadian people that are in the game and they've been in the game for a long time. I think when outsiders come into the Canada soccer scene and they're willing to share their knowledge, I think Canadians are just really appreciative, and we want to learn. We have that sponge mentality in us that we want to get better in this game because, again, clearly there's a passion for the game in this country.
What I wanted to also share with you is that as much as we want to teach and share our experiences, believe me, even at my age, every day I'm learning. I always feel like you have to be the student of life and student of the game. And when you stop learning, that's when you have to stop coaching and stop teaching. I think learning is a very important process. I'm a pioneer in many parts of the game, from technology, using technology and analysis, using metrics and data to improve players, using every tool that is available to try to make better training and better exercises to speed the process of developing a player, developing a human being. And I really, what's inspired me about coaching from age 14 when I started coaching little children, and I had an opportunity because I got a degree in electrical engineering from UCLA that I could have been an engineer, and I took a coaching path because I felt I can change lives. I can use the sport as a vehicle to help the people around me and the environment around me. And I've seen it. I've seen how a game in Korean national team, finishing fourth in the world, what it did to a country, how it united them, how it gave them confidence. We saw the Korean economy grew. We saw Korean companies become more globalized and international after the World Cup 2002. And I've had a series of those experiences. In Japan, the tsunami hit. Our team had to stop. It was my first season in the J League. And when the earthquake hit and the tsunami hit and 20+ thousand passed, how football tried to unite and give people hope. That's the power of this game. And I think the World Cup in Qatar, and I think the World Cup in 2026 will do the same for Canada. And I'm hoping Canadian Premier League can be a vehicle for that.
Oh, wonderfully said. Coach, before we get you off, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to competing against you next season as I play for York United. But, on behalf of the players here, welcome to the league, and looking forward to going at it next season.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story and talk about the game, and I wish everyone great luck. Thank you very much for having me as your guest.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get you back on before maybe the start of next season once you get your team kind of put together and see how things are going.
Right before he's playing York United, we'll get you on and we could talk some trash.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Afshin Ghotbi from Vancouver FC, the brand new head coach of the brand new club. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we're going to look at the brand new club a little bit more and maybe talk a little bit about what we expect for next season. All that and more right here on Footy First. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, York United keeper, Niko Giantsopoulos. And Niko, that was a great interview that we just had with the brand new head coach of Vancouver FC, Afshin Ghotbi. Very enlightening on what they're trying to build out there.
Yeah, no, he speaks with good passion. Again, I was telling you just now as the phone call, and I would love to hear his pregame speeches. I feel like he'll get me very motivated, almost like Herdman-esque.
Yeah,
even though I don't really have any contact with Herdman. I haven't.
But just hearing him
speeches.
In the
but
press,
again, the passion, the way he speaks, a great speaker. And listen, I'm happy to see people with that passion getting involved in Canada soccer.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that we spoke to Paul Bieran a little while ago when he started working with Pacific FC, and there was two words that they both shared. And I know it's a different club altogether, but they're both owned by Rob Friend and the group that he's with. They both use the term project, and they both use the term vision when talking about how Rob sold them on the job. I have a question that obviously you can't answer. I can't answer.
I could try to answer it.
Right? I want to know what that vision is. Because if it's pulling people in from all over the world like Afshin, clearly something that they're building out there is big. And I hope that whatever they're doing is translating to bigger growth for the CPL as a whole.
Yeah, their ownership there is very unique and always interesting because Rob Friend is an ex-player out of all the ownership group. I believe someone might correct me if I'm wrong, but he's the only owner that has played professional soccer. So, the contacts, the network that he probably has accumulated over, I believe, a 13-year professional career in Germany and Europe. Pretty impressive. So again, I think he's one of that ownership there is one of the few ownerships where I feel like they're like all in. It's tough for me to speak on these owners because I don't have all the info on them. But
you've also only played on 2 teams. It's not like you've played on all 8. Well, now 9, right?
When you're in the league, you feel like you know a bit about the ownership group, friends play there,
a bit.
Stuff like
That's
that.
what I mean, though. Like
exactly.
You don't have the full story.
Exactly.
So
it's hard to speak on it. But I get the feeling that they're all in. They're putting all their chips in on Canada Soccer being this huge business success. And that's why if they're opening up a second club, Pacific's already had a good foundation. Now they're, again, doubling down, investing in another club, bringing another club into Vancouver. It's that all-in mentality, and I kind of back it. I kind of rate it a little bit.
Well, you love to hear that because what we're trying to build with this Canadian Premier League as the soccer community in Canada is something that can rival top leagues. Obviously, it's going to take a while to get there. I'm not saying we're going to be competing with the EPL in 5 years' time. That would be ridiculous to say.
No, it's not realistic.
Right? But if we can build it to a top North American or like America's league, that would be a success for this league.
And
right?
I think that's how this ownership group's looking at it. It's like if the CPL can get to where the MLS is now, look how much more valuable those teams are. If they're there at the beginning, the profit margins on that business plan is going to be through the roof. And I think that's the vision that they see. They see CPL being this huge league. I mean, Mark Noonan even said it in the news after the finals that he sees the CPL can be a top 10 league in the world. He came out and said that. So again, if Rob Friend and the ownership group out there out west had that same vision. If you're there at the beginning and you got 2-3 teams that you made a small investment and now the team's 10 times worth more than it is now.
Could you imagine?
That's what I mean. But I think that's the vision. That's the project that they are actually envisioning. And again, you got to think that 2026 World Cup they're expecting. The profits go even right through the roof.
Right through the roof.
Coach, Afshin there even spoke on, he saw in Korea the impact hosting a World Cup can have in a nation. So again, talking about this vision, what they see, again, it's very much aligning to how they're going about their business right now.
The other thing I was really impressed with when we were listening to him was his conversation about the community, the Vancouver community, and trying to build that soccer community in Vancouver. I love that because sometimes you'll have a coach, no matter where they're from, they could be from the area, right? They'll come in and just be focused on their team, their players, that's it. They don't want any conversation with anybody who is not in a jersey or on their coaching staff, right? Yeah. They'll bring their guys in. It doesn't sound like that's the case for this Vancouver club based on what the coach just said. This is something that they're building a community around. And
they already have the blueprint because they've been able to do it with Pacific FC. That's also the confidence that the league has in this ownership group. It's like, okay, look, it's the only other team that's won a championship besides Forge in this league is the ownership group Rob Friend built there. So I'm sure they have the confidence of the league that they can, again, being involved in the community, that I feel like that's like the foundation of the club. When you're starting, you have to master it. You have to integrate in the community. I mean, again, that's how you get fans in the stands.
That's the best way too.
If the people from that area can relate to the team, you're gonna sell tickets, and then again, the business is going to be profitable and it's going to be a successful business. Do we want to talk about the name Vancouver FC?
Yeah, I was going to get into that. I had one point to add, and then I was going to get into that, but I think you and me, I can't remember if we were talking about it on air or off air, but we said the easiest way to grow this league, I think it was right after we talked to Noonan actually, is to get the youth levels involved with the clubs, right? Could you imagine a team coming in the 5th season just does that right off the top? Like, that's the ideal. Like, that's what all expansion teams, if that's what the case is, that's what all expansion teams should strive to do moving forward.
And I think it has to be kind of the standard the league has to set out to these expansion clubs. Like, listen, you can't just be 10 years behind. Imagine 10 years from now the CPL and expansion team comes like, sorry, we're going to be 10 years behind.
Yeah, it's not good. It
needs to come in and you have all the foundation in place, and it's important. The name. Vancouver FC.
You are all in. You've been so hyped about this to talk about this, and I'm laughing.
First of all, it's something that no team in this league has done so far. They're in a big market. Vancouver is a big city market.
Yeah.
And they didn't, change York. We're not Toronto. We're called York.
Yeah, the only other one is the other expansion team.
Which is who?
Atletico Ottawa.
Atletico Ottawa.
That's the only other one.
But that's not a big market. Not compared to Vancouver. You can't compare.
Capital city.
I know, but I don't think you could compare. Even population size is not even close.
Well,
big
yes,
city.
but what would you consider a big market then? Other than Toronto and Vancouver,
Montreal.
Okay, and we don't have a team in Montreal yet. So Ottawa's fourth then?
No, York. York's probably bigger than Ottawa.
Okay. Never mind.
This is a different topic. But I love the name. So then they go we're going to be Vancouver FC.
Yeah.
Again, and essentially that's like declaring war on the Whitecaps. So who's going to be Vancouver's team?
Yeah.
Vancouver FC, Vancouver Whitecaps FC. It's not even like a Manchester City, Manchester United kind of situation.
They're both FC.
They're both like Vancouver FC. It's an interesting,
but it's funny because
branding marketing.
I have a question for you. When you talk about Vancouver, the MLS squad,
this is going to be how we're going to refer to it now.
No, but serious question.
Okay.
How often do you actually call them Vancouver?
The Whitecaps.
I usually call them the Whitecaps.
They've done a really good job at marketing Whitecaps as
absolutely.
Their name.
So it almost feels like the now Vancouver FC is just if you want to call yourselves Whitecaps, that's fine. We're gonna take Vancouver and we're gonna make that our brand.
I wonder if that went into their marketing strategy.
Well, because there was a lot of talk that it might be Langley. It could be they were gonna go Greater Vancouver or something like that. There was a lot of different. I mean, obviously not necessarily within the ownership group, but outside, all the fan bases, all the talk on social media was that it could be Langley. That was the big name.
Yeah, well, I believe that's where their stadium is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be in Langley, right? So they thought, okay, maybe it is going to be Langley. They decided to go Vancouver, and they went with an interesting logo, I would say, the eagle with the stripes coming out the wings.
Is it an eagle? Can we confirm?
The bald eagle.
It's a bald eagle.
It's supposed to represent a bald eagle because the Lower Mainland has one of the largest bald eagle populations in North America.
It's so funny.
This is stuff
really
reading. This is stuff
as
reading.
A player, it's even the beginning of the CPL, all the names, the cavalry. I learned so much about the background of the city, and it's wow, they put so much thought.
Yeah, and
it's just something you don't think about.
And for people like me, because I love jerseys, I love logos. Like we were talking before, I actually prefer their second logo to their actual logo because it's clean. It's just a VFC all intertwined. But I actually like the logo. I'm not saying their main logo is bad. It's just they went with a V. They didn't go with an eagle, right? They could have just gone with a generic eagle. Yep. But no, they went with a V. Yeah. So they're leaning into the Vancouver.
Yeah, but again, we're kind of the most interesting part now will be how their team looks. They could have nice jerseys, they could have a nice
it doesn't
name,
mean anything.
All that. I'm real curious how this team is going to be built. I'm curious with the coaches now. He's been in the Asian market. He coached out there. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we're going to see an international signing from that market. We haven't really seen a big name one, a main player from the Asian market come to the CPL and have success. So I'm curious if that's kind of a market they're going to start dabbling in. But again, the local talent, Vancouver's obviously a hub.
Absolutely.
A lot of talented players there now that they have the League One. BC,
which by the way,
on there. Go ahead.
They're now in the Canadian Championship. The winner of the League One BC is now in the Canadian Championship, so which is great. Mm-hmm. We love to see that kind of stuff because we've talked about how important that is.
And they have that now semi-professional soccer scene growing there. And again, even this weekend is the Final Four. Canada West Final Four is out there,
and the OUA.
Yeah, is the OUA?
OUA Women's, I know, is on
the
Saturday.
Nationals is hosted in Kamloops in a couple weeks as well. So again, talking about signing players, local players, the draft, the CPL draft is going to come up. I'm sure Vancouver FC is now going to be representing, in the Final Four. It's a good opportunity for these college kids,
absolutely,
to get their foot in the door in their new local professional club.
Absolutely, it's incredible, and we're going to say this for the other side, but. The question now becomes, if we're looking at this from a CPL standpoint, how many teams will be in the league next year? Because right now we got 9 clubs. Mm-hmm. Will all 9 play next year? We're going to get into that on the other side. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back once again to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Got about 5 minutes to wrap this show up. Nick McVicar, Niko Giantsopoulos, and Niko. I kind of teased it before we came in, but new club, 9 in the CPL now. But there is talk that all 9 might not play because we are waiting. And we were told maybe it would happen before the final. Then we were told it was going to happen Monday, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday. And now I'm hearing it might be another week. It keeps moving the target, but
What keeps moving?
I was going to get to that.
Okay.
We're waiting to hear what is going to happen with Edmonton and the Eddies. There's talk that they might not play next year, which is not a great thing for the league.
And is it the whole club will then just stop existing? They'll fold?
So that's the thing. I've heard multiple different sides of this. So there is a possibility that they might just fold and they will no longer exist. Those players will be able to just go into, I'm assuming, a recapture pool or something where all the clubs are going to have the ability to.
But are any of those players on long-term deals at Edmonton?
Well, like anyone who is under contract. So
I don't think anyone is, because remember this year wasn't all players like loaned to them. I mean, we owned Wojciechowski, Felix Ensa, and I'm missing one other player, but we loaned them to Edmonton, so I don't think they own any of their players. So there's no like long-term deals. The biggest thing is the club will just cease to exist. And I mean that means Kosh is out of a job, the coach, who's done you got to say a good job over there. Yeah. The circumstances he's been given, but whose fault? Like if Edmonton folds, it's going to be terrible, because you're even saying how good the Edmonton soccer community is out there. Yeah, and they've obviously been around for Canada soccer for a long time.
Yeah, and they've shown that they have passion. They've shown that they're willing to go out to the games, because prior to being in the CPL, when they were in the USL. Maybe not the year before they came to the CPL, but they were a passionate fan base. They were one of the best in the league. That many people said that, and now for some reason they're not showing up, and that's a problem, and that's costing them a team.
That's the thing. I can't think of one game where there's been a packed, Edmonton stadium in there. So it's almost seemed like the fans have like given up on the market of a professional soccer team, because this year Edmonton was looking for new owners at the beginning of the season and was told, listen, the family that owned them previously, the Fath family, I believe, doesn't want to own them, and now it's up to purchase. Someone could come in and buy.
Yeah.
If the Edmonton fans that are so strong and so passionate about soccer in their community just showed out for their team and came in, I'm not saying 6,000 people, but a consistent 2,500, 3,000 people,
which is what a lot of the CPL teams are getting.
Exactly. So compete with the other teams. I think then it would have enticed business owners to look at that as like, okay, there's something there. But there's no one in the stands.
I wonder what caused that though, because as I said before, they were doing well. They were getting fans to come out. I wonder what changed right before they came to the CPL. I don't know, and I wish I knew.
Yeah, it's a conversation that we should have, similar to how we had Anthony from Halifax, a fan, come in. We should speak to the head of the Eddie supporters group and say, what's going on? How come you guys aren't filling the stadium like maybe you used to?
Yeah, and you're right. They don't have a single long-term contract. All of their contracts either end in November or in December.
Yeah, so again, all the players this year were loaned out. Again, and that kind of seemed like writing on the wall already that, this project...
Well, it just means they didn't know.
Exactly, right? So they're taking the safe way.
Yeah. And they do have players that are under contract to the club. They're not all loaned to the club. Okay. Some of them were Eddie's players. I just wonder what's going to happen with those guys moving forward.
But again, if they only had deals that were running out till the end of this year, then they were preparing to be free agents at the end of the season.
Right, but usually you get a re-sign, whatever, right?
Well, not usually.
No, but I mean, like, you have the ability to re-sign your own players, and there's like a window that you can kind of do that before. I know it's not exactly the same as like the NHL and the NBA, but you can talk to them throughout the year. I wonder what the conversations were like with these players. Like, we're going to wait.
Yeah, well, I felt like Edmonton this year was like last chance FC. The guys that were maybe out of contracts couldn't really find something too concrete, got a second chance of a professional career.
Some of them took advantage.
Some of them took. Gabriel Batar is the name that jumps to my head right away. Casher even is another person that jumps to mind. I had one more thing to say, and we're running out of time.
I distracted you. Go quickly.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It was about Edmonton. We could edit all of this. It was about Edmonton.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, nothing. This is what happens when we do this live, because sometimes you just forget stuff. But, okay, quickly, we're going to end on this, okay? If Edmonton doesn't play next year, is it a loss for the Canadian Premier League?
Yeah. I mean, even as a player, I don't want to be a new face team is nice,
It's great.
Fresh air. You don't play the same team over and over. And for the league, yeah, it's not good. We need the league to grow. An expansion side has come in Ottawa. They stuck. They made us 8.
And they did what they needed to do. They were in the final this year.
Listen, they did a great job, and I'm hoping this Vancouver FC team is in. But if we lose a foundation team club in the process, it's kind of like one step forward, one step back. We're in the same spot. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah,
it might
I
not
agree.
be correct because we might be losing a weaker franchise and gaining a franchise was a much stronger foundation.
But as a whole, you're losing something, and you don't want to lose anything. The goal is to be growing right now.
Exactly, and continuously. So
I
want
wonder
10 teams at this point.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
If we do lose Edmonton, I wonder if eventually another expansion club goes back.
I wonder if there's CPL. I mean, when Ottawa got introduced into the CPL, it was quick. Out of nowhere, they came in and boom.
That's because Atletico just decided, no, we want a club. Here's the money. Do it.
That's true. I wonder if there's something in the. I think Gatineau, Quebec is somewhere.
Yeah, I've heard Gatineau.
Because Ottawa needs a local.
You know what?
I actually remember what I was going to say as well. I was saying, I wonder if CPL is going to adapt an expansion draft, and then that would be a perfect opportunity for these FC Edmonton players to get picked up in an expansion draft, or maybe players that have option years.
Draft.
Yeah, but maybe
because it's not an expansion. Expansion would be what Vancouver would get, and they would be able to pick a couple players from each team.
Exactly. I wonder if the CPL is going to, and then those guys, if there was already an expansion draft in place, those guys are now eligible to be in the expansion drafts as well. And then players who are going into contract years this year, they're the ones eligible for the expansion draft. That's the way they could do it.
Maybe.
How contracts work. In
Maybe.
CPL.
Would be interesting, for sure. That'll do it for us here this week. Make sure you tune in on YouTube if you like to watch it. We always put our episodes out there. Apple Podcast, your favorite podcatcher, or listen to us every weekend, 10 a.m. We'll be back next week for Niko Giantsopoulos. I'm Nick McVicar. Thank you for listening. We'll see you then.